Hey guys, it's GM Max Illingworth and welcome to my video on Club Player Chess. Now I actually can't find any suitable people in my friends list to actually play games. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually play some unrated games myself against a different club level opposition. I'm going to talk through my process, my thought process, so that you can see how to beat them. Do make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you're enjoying this video, and subscribe to Illingworth Chess if you're new to the channel. Now, first I should get raised, I should actually get my posture in order, not just slump, but, make sure that I've got a nice straight posture. So you can see I played the Benko Gambit, and I find that Benko is a very effective system, as I've covered in videos like how to beat d4 and how to play a Benko Gambit. You can see that one up in the suggestions box up above. So yeah, we have Bishop g7, and what really makes the Benko very attractive as a blitz opening is that Black's moves are very straightforward. You're just going to castle, Queen a5, just put the pressure on their center. And White has to think on every move, okay, how am I going to deal with this pressure, and how am I going to deal with a rook coming to b8 and hitting my b2 pawn? So he's playing this move d6, and already that's a move that I'm very, very happy to see here. Because even though he can play d takes e7 and open up my structure, that's something I'm very kind of pleased to see. e3 is already making the mistake of leaving his king stuck in the center. And you're going to notice I'm not rushing to play this move e takes d6, because then his queen is going to get to a much more active square of the recapture. Instead, I'm just kind of playing healthy moves, just steadily improving the position. Actually, I could have considered a move like e6 and say that pawn on d6 is one I can just play around. But instead, I decided to put the knight on b4 just to kind of take that outpost. You can see that a4 was obviously weakening the b4 and b3 squares. So yeah, now actually I could consider a move like rook a6 if I want to. Or I could play a move like e6. You could definitely make an argument, I think, for both of these moves here. I think I'm going to go rook a6, because I think that I can't actually win that pawn after e6, e4, and they're going to go e5, bishop f4, and consolidate. So instead I'm just going to make him take and say, well, at least I got my queen more active, at least I got my pawn on d5, and I have some very active piece play. I don't think that with ideas like c4 and putting the knight into d3, that I would have very good compensation. But after knight b5, I'm going to exploit the fact that he's left that e4 pawn not so well defended, so I'm going to play knight e4, using the fact that he can't play take on d5 because my knight's protecting it. And if he does play bishop d2, I'd have the move rook to bishop takes b2. Now, rook e1 is kind of asking for a move like c4. And yeah, it does give him the d4 outpost for the knight, but I get d3 in return. And I think that's a very good trade for me of squares. Knight d4, I go knight d3. He plays rook e2, and it just feels like I should have something very good in that position. I could even keep the move knight d3 in reserve if I wanted to, just to keep him guessing. And I think that's what I'm going to do, just to play rook b8 and go after this weak pawn on b2. And really, I feel like this game I probably haven't played it quite as well as I could have, but I mean, he's also played quite reasonable moves, so I mean, it's how chess goes. You can play rook e2, but then I have knight c3. That's actually a big reason why b3 probably wasn't the best move for him. Rook e2, knight c3 forks. That's why I should go rook f1, but okay, I'd still have very good compensation. Yeah, now I just win material. And from this, you can already kind of see one of the main weaknesses that club players have, is that they'll often just miss these kind of tactics when you put them under a little bit of piece pressure, where you really do get rewarded for playing very actively against these sort of players. Now, I don't want to play knight takes c1 and c takes b3, because then my rook takes queen takes a6 will be at the end of that. So I'm going to prepare it with queen c4 instead. If he takes, I take back d takes c4, and I get this nice pass pawn. And also, you're going to notice one thing I'm doing really effectively in this game is I'm not rushing to take him first, but I'm letting him take me, and they're getting my piece to bear squares through a capture. Now, I have to be a little bit careful, because c takes b3 maybe goes knight to d2. I don't seem to have a good way to defend that knight. So maybe I should play bishop takes d4 first, but then knight d4, cb3 still has this f3 move. So the problem is my rook on a6, I'm going to just play some rook move to get out of the way, like rook a8, so that I can actually play like c takes b3 or knight takes c1, cb3 later. That's a good example. Thinking, okay, what is the opponent trying to do? And also asking, well, why is it that my move is not actually working? And then kind of reverse engineering it, figuring out the reason, and then playing a move kind of based on that, of using the logic, as it were, in chess. So yeah, I've got the pass pawn. I just go queen d5. I keep the c4 undefended. I'm threatening to take the knight with bishop takes d4. And it's very hard to see how White's going to really defend against this flow of threats here. Bishop a3 allows rook takes a4. Otherwise, your bishop is just stuck on c1 and not really doing much. So it's not just I'm up material with the exchange for the pawn, but I also just have a very strong initiative and Maybe he wants to go e4 or something, but I don't think that's a big threat. I think just rook to b4. Now, if he goes e4, I can just play queen b7, and I'm still hitting a4, and he's still got this very loose knight in the center. Yeah, I'm just going to gobble this pawn, rook takes, and if the rook trade is very good for me, because now I'm the only one with the power of the rook. If bishop c3, maybe I just go queen a8 even, and just keep everything very well protected, because after all, he's very low on time. I could throw in rook a1 check, but I'm going to just go queen b7, just go for some queen b1 and try to get in this way. Yeah, I think now I might have some tactics, like rook a1, and I think I'm going to have like knight e5, right? Because he can't take knight takes e5, because then there's a check on the king. But otherwise, I simply, I simply just win, basically. So king h3, I'm going to go queen d7. Because if knight f3, you might have had some queen e8 and some bishop h6 rubbish. But yeah, this is just game over now. So yeah, let's play the guy again. Let's see if he's up for another game. It looks like he is. So, okay, I'm going to go e4. If you want to learn how to play e4, you can check out my How to Win e4, which I'll put up the link in the suggested videos. Yeah, he's playing this weird g6, c6. Probably because, he wants to go d5, but the thing is that, let's say I just even take and play e5, for example. Maybe I shouldn't have rushed to take, but I did this because it leads to a familiar position that you can also get from, like, an Alpen Sicilian type position. Like, h5, he wants to go bishop g4, so let's just stop it with h3. Because he's still got this weak square on g5 that I can take advantage of, and you're going to see it's like a French where his bishop is still stuck here, but where at the same time, his bishop on g7 is very bad. So all I think that black's really managed to achieve here is just to misplace both of his bishops. Queen b6, I can just go knight a4, just kick the queen. You can see I'm defending this pawn in the most aggressive way possible. And now I can go bishop d2, and he simply trapped his own queen. So that was a pretty easy win. You can see that I played a lot more directly here with white, just taking over the center with the pawns. And that allowed me to basically, seal black's fate. Well, okay, of course, he didn't play this very well, but still, you can kind of see the sort of mistakes that players will make when they're in a difficult position. Like, when they're passive, they're going to start trying to attack you, and that's often when you can take advantage. Let's play something a little bit different this time against d4. I've done videos on the King's Indian defense recently, so let's play that and show how that kind of plays out. The bishop g7, going to go d6. And knight f3, bishop e2 cast is kind of normal, but h3 is kind of a modern trend. Bishop e3. I'm not a big fan of bishop d3, however. I mean, if I play like knight c6 is one interesting idea. Because the thing is that if he goes d5 or knight e2, I can jump that knight into d4 and potentially, have this quite nice outpost for the knight if he doesn't take on d4. If he doesn't take, I can even play moves like c5 and just anchor that knight on a very strong square. That's why I decided to take on d4 and go like knight e2 or knight b5, trying to attack the pawn. And then it's an interesting question of how I want to play this position, because I have a few options available. I mean, rook e8 seems pretty natural, like knight d4, knight e4. And then if f3, I kind of makes knight h5 a little more appealing, because then queen h4 is an idea, and I can try to exploit some of those weak squares. But I'm also thinking a move like c5 at this point, as a pawn sacrifice. Because let's say he plays d takes c6 and he grabs the pawn with knight d4. Well, he's opening up his king along this diagonal on b6 to g1. He's opening up the long diagonal, so it just feels like there's got to be something super strong here for black. Like, even, a move like d5 is kind of interesting, just sacking a second pawn and ripping open the king. Even knight h5 and queen h4, like sacking a second pawn, but in return getting the, getting the attack on the king. Like, that seems really strong. So I'm going to do this. Because the idea is of knight c6, queen h4. Like, let's say he plays king d2 and tries to run with the king. I've got the move queen to g5 then, and I can then go after that pawn on g2 as well. So I think he's playing knight e2 because he wants to be able to go king f1 without allowing a knight g3 fork. But yeah, king d2, this is a move I think we're very happy to see. Like, even a move like d5 is kind of tempting, just not bothering about, the material and just going for the attack. But I'm going to go queen g5, just get the pawn back directly. Which actually is a mistake, because king c2, queen g2, and queen f1 might have allowed him at least trade off the queens and keep the game going. But now I think with his king stuck in the center, it's a big problem for him. And we're kind of seeing actually one of the main weaknesses these sort of club players, like say 2000 rated and below, tend to have. And that's that once you sort of attack them, they're not very good at defending. They're often going to choose the more passive way of defending. Or they're just going to miss some trick or some tactic, and you can see the result here. The black is basically just up a full pawn. And I'm still going after h3, like bishop h3. I've still got d5 to rip open the white king in the center. So, in fact, the biggest advantage is not that I'm a pawn up here. It's that his king is in the middle. And he hasn't really managed to get around to developing a c1 bishop or the a1 rook. So the lack of the, queenside development really does cost white dearly here. I'm just taking more pawns, keeping the white king in the middle. You know, it's just basically over at this point for white. You know, I'll play moves like rook b8 and, you know, even a move like d5 at some moment, as I've said a million times already. But it's just a good move in these structures that when they do have the pawns on e4 and c4, your dream should be to go d5 and try rip things open. Let's play one more game against this guy, but I'm going to go d4 just to offer something a little bit different, because I know you guys watching, you do play some different repertoires, and also do make sure to subscribe to the channel as well for more videos like this one. So I go e4, and I'm just going to take the space in the center, you know, knight c3. The reason I'm not playing the move c4 is because I want to keep that square on c4 for a knight potentially, like knight d2, knight c4. Or I could even use that square for the bishop as well, just making it really hard for black to get in a move like e6. Now I think he's playing knight e5 because he knows that in principle you want to trade off the minor pieces when you have this space disadvantage. Obviously d5, e4 is giving a very healthy amount of space. The problem with that is that you're moving the knight a second time, and also, let's say you play a move like knight f6. I can even just play a move like, let's say, h3 or, you know, queen at e2. And when white does end up playing like bishop h6, you're going to have a lot of problems with your king safety. I'm just going to go bishop d2, just stopping any b5 counterplay. I'm going to go queen e2 and just prepare e5. Like in these Benoni structures, your dream break is generally to get an e5 like this, because A, well, it helps you open up the bishop pair, but also it allows you to attack that pawn chain c5, d6, e7, and just the opening of position just is generally in white's favor here. So I'm going to play e takes d6 here. And my idea is to go queen e7, but I just realized that knight e5 maybe is a little bit annoying there. But I'm kind of committed at this point. Well, unless I go bishop h6 first. That might actually be a better move potentially to try to exploit black's open king. Because after rook d8, I think I can just play rook e1 and threaten some like rook take to queen to e8 mate. Okay, now I think he's just giving me the win, right? I think I don't have to actually take that rook, which of course is still perfectly good. But now after queen e7, I think this is just game over. Because if he lets me get in queen f8 mate or queen f6 and queen to g7, like that's just game over. And yeah, he obviously doesn't see my threat because yeah, queen here, and you know, he doesn't even have like queen takes c3 because I'm covering it with the queen, and well, we can see that basically just by playing very aggressively, like just developing in a very natural manner. You know, you see moves like knight f3. Like my moves are not particularly sophisticated. I'm just getting a new piece to every move. This guy wasn't doing that in this game. He was wasting a lot of time. You know, make some strategic mistakes like bishop c3. And that allowed me to win the game pretty quickly. So yeah, let's have a few more games. Let's see who else we might play. I want to try and get a different opponent. And yeah, this guy, I've played this guy before actually. I remember he nearly beat me one time when I blundered a piece. So let's not do that this time. Let's play some good moves. If he's willing to play. Like maybe he's so scared my GM title he's just going to abort or something. Perhaps doesn't realize he's on stream either. Anyway, yeah, he's probably just going to disconnect or something. I guess it gives me a good opportunity to remind you guys to smash that like button and also to comment below with like when you do subscribe, because that way, you know, when you say I'm subscribed, it gives me a chance to welcome you officially into the channel, let you be part of the family as such. You know, also the other subscribers can come in and say, you know, welcome to Illingworth Chess. You made the right decision to improve your chess. Because actually, that's one thing I did like this video. I decided not to like the intro, like Illingworth Chess, improve your chess. You know, I like to mix it up a little bit, and you know, I don't want to lose a lot of valuable seconds on the clock from, you know, doing some long-winded intro and, you know, trying to, you know, do the music and whatever. Anyway, this guy's about to disconnect. Kind of lame, but what can you do? So yeah, let's see. He's about to, yeah, it's about to time out, and let's get another opponent. Yeah, finally. Okay, so let's find another person to play. Oh, I think he's challenging me. Okay, let's accept it. He's about the right range I'm looking for, like below 2,000. I'm going to go e5 this time, actually, because I did some videos recently on like how to play e4, e5, and well, I covered knight f6 and how to beat the Italian game, so let's follow my recommendations. They're e4, e5, d5. Yeah, cards like this line is considered to be very safe. Oh, it's going Nakamson Gambit. That's cool, because I actually have done some work on Nakamson, and so I know that you play this refutation, they go bishop f7, you just take it. Queen d5, you go king f6, and basically the attack leads nowhere for white. If queen e4, I think you just go knight e7, and it turns out that white is sort of drawing dead in that case. So he's going rook e1, and now I'm trying to remember what you're meant to do in this position. I think knight e7 is still meant to be the move, if I remember correctly, that this idea still works well for black as such. Like bishop g5, I'm just going to take, and like from a human perspective, it looks like this should just be mating somehow. Like, you know, your king is somehow getting made in the center, but just somehow your king's always able to kind of run away like king f7, king e8, and somehow black's just fine. So I think that if I remember correctly, like d5, but maybe they go queen f4, bishop f5, g4, and that might not be so clear actually. So maybe it's more practical just to run with a king, like king to f7, and like just get the king out of the danger zone simply. You know, if knight g5 or knight g5, I'm just going to tuck my king away on g8. I can meet queen c4 with d5 to block the check. If they try to put the queen in f4 and go for queen f7, mate, I think just queen e8. And I don't really see a great follow-up for the attack. I mean, this guy's a little bit unlucky that I kind of analyze this guy, like, analyze this Hampson Gambit for a course I created recently. Because otherwise I would have no idea how to meet it. But yeah, bishop g5 is trying to attack. If I remember correctly, I think that just a d5 is meant to be quite good here. Like, you're sort of not even that perturbed by the pin. I mean, technically I probably could get away with cb2, but it's very impractical. Like, I'm already up a piece. There's no need to rush to take more material. If I'm able to catch up in development, I'm going to just win in that kind of way. So, yeah, he's probably calculating queen f4, knight e5, but my king's just going to tuck away on g8 and just be very, very safe on this side of the board. I think king e8 technically is fine as well, but king g8's a lot more safe looking. And yeah, I mean, the pin looks very scary on the e-file, like rook e2. Rook e1 definitely looks kind of dangerous, but I'm always going to have this move at h6 a good moment just to break that pin. And I think that should be pretty secure for me, actually. Like, I can always throw in c takes b2 and even just have these are like just queening the pawn and sort of covering that way. So I thought I could even go bishop e6 if I wanted to. It does mean my bishop is not so well protected, but maybe it doesn't have that great a way to take advantage. I mean, queen e8 sort of feels like the safer move in this position for some reason, even though it puts a piece opposite the pin. So I'm going to go queen e8 here. And the reason queen e8 is I also want to go like knight g6 at some point, and maybe I can trade off the knight that way. So that's sort of the thinking behind this. Obviously, like, it's one that really separates the boys from the men in chess is the ability to defend very well. So it's kind of cool to see this game where this skill is essentially being tested, as it were. I still have to be a little bit careful, but I think that the move c takes b2 is going to be safe for me here. The reason is, like, let's say he plays bishop takes e7, and rook d5. Well, then it's very handy to have moves like bishop e6 or bishop d6, and you're not given the option to move the knight out of the pin, because I'll often maybe just be able to like play queen takes rook and b1 equals queen. I know it's kind of a lot of moves to follow it like in your head, but that's sort of the reason why I'm taking b2. It's to have the option to kind of promote that pawn, either like just making a new queen or even as a kind of decoy to sort of deflect the rook away if I need to for defense. So that's the reason why I have these nerves of steel playing this as black here. And because obviously, yeah, it's like he's got all the pieces in the attack, but he just doesn't have any real weaknesses to get at. And so that sort of allows me to get away with sort of breaking all the principles and not developing my pieces the way a normal chess player would do. So yeah, that's, I mean, he's thinking for a long time. Like, knight g4 is a decent attempt, but I can even play like takes and just trade off. Or I can go queen f7 first, which I think is probably even more precise, or at least it's a little more practical. Because once the queen's a trade, he has absolutely nothing really in terms of the attack. And if he goes queen g3, I can always play like bishop g4 and trade the quick pieces then, but with my queen being out of the pin already, which is a nice little advantage here. So yeah, he's trading, but I mean, he's got nothing here. You know, he's just doesn't have enough material, and, you know, my undeveloped pieces are on like f8, bishop, and c8 bishop. We're actually doing a good job earlier. So yeah, obviously I don't want to fall for like bishop f6, rook e8, so let's just play like king to... Yeah, let's go king f8, just so knight e5 doesn't come with a check. But yeah, he's just down too much material here. Bishop f5, I'll just develop my remaining pieces, and that's going to give me the pretty easy win. You know, rook e8, just develop more. You know, bishop d6, attack the knight. Like, this is not overly complicated from Black's perspective. Just develop your pieces, and your extra material in general is going to win itself. Like, you see, I can almost pre-move at this point, actually. You know, rook g6, and just, you know, you can even go for the attack on the king, rook h5, rook h3. This guy, yeah, he played very interesting. Like, definitely, it's a good spirit to play against much high-rate player. Try to make it complicated and try to, you know, set some practical problems in this way. But, okay, it was unlucky that I was very well prepared for this. I did some videos on the London recently, so let's play London again. Because, in fact, he played very aggressively in the previous game. So, playing something kind of solid, I feel like is not really going to be suiting his style. Actually, h3 is a little bit careless, but I want to avoid knight to h5. And, yeah, I want to also try, I guess, keep a little bit flexible as well. You know, knight d2, bishop d3, and... Yeah, sometimes I have a habit of trying to play these positions too creatively, but I think that now, if he goes c5, I can go c3, and I might even take back with the c pawn on d4 and just try to push in the center with e4. Or let's say if he goes d5, I'll get a really nice square of the knight with knight e5. So yeah, d5, knight e5, and I mean, it's not a perfect setup. I'd rather have played castles so I could have the h3 square for the queen. But it's still, I think, a slightly better position for white. I can go queen f3, or I can castle. Probably I should castle, just keep my options open a bit more. Because, I mean, I don't think there's a particular advantage going g4, g5 in this sort of position. He wants to go knight e4 and try to sort of, try to basically kick my knight away with f6 and shut up my bishop. So that's what queen f3 is about, just not allowing this idea. I mean, the other plans go like a4, a5 and try to chip away at the weaknesses, which, if I was playing a higher rated player, maybe this is what I would go for. Yeah, now I have an interesting choice, like what my plan should be here. Because I also could have played knight df3 and just allowed knight e4, but at the moment my queen is struggling a little bit to find a good spot. Because let's say I go queen g3, he might go knight h5. So I think I'm going to play bishop to h2. And my idea is to kind of clear the way for f4. Now, it probably would have been better if I'd done this a little bit earlier, but, you know, better late than never. And also I do have times like I can clear the way for maybe g4, g5, which does start to look more tempting. Actually, a move like bishop b5 is what I'm really drawn to, trying to go bishop takes d7 and then queen f7. But I think queen e7 or rook e7 might be a reasonable defense there. So it's an interesting question how to play it, because bishop f8 is a very passive move. It feels like he's really asking me to go g4, but I want to make sure there's no big disadvantage to doing this. I think I can safely play it, but I'm going to go a4 first, just kind of keep the options open a little bit more. The idea is like also maybe I can go like a5 after bishop b5 and try to add a bit of strength to this idea. It's also kind of like he's not really playing any constructive plan at the moment. So it's almost by playing this kind of waiting move that side for his position. It encourages to make some sort of mistake, like cd4 I think is a strategic mistake here, because now I have this nice open e-file for the rook. It gives me a square for the queen like queen e3 and f4 and f5. And yeah, g6 is a reasonable attempt I think, but I don't think white is just quite significantly better. I think queen e3 or... I'm considering queen e2 as well. I'm going to play queen e2 because I want to stop a6, b5 ideas. And also means when I play f4, like he doesn't have any bishop h6 or something like this. My plan's just going to be like knight df3, knight g5, like this is the general plan. Or even just g4, queen g2, rook a1, f5 and just open up the position. Yeah, because yeah, it's playing quite passively, so I think I can just afford to push the pawns in front of my king. Because it's not like he's really in a position to, you know, try to attack my king. Like knight e4 is very well covered. And all my pieces are very well placed for the attack on this side of the board. Like rook f8, already very passive move. So I'm just going to keep developing this, kind of leave him without a good plan. Going to go queen g2 just to prepare f5 without that rook being on the open, the queen being on that open e-file. And now I feel like everything is ready just to go f5 and just rip open the position. Like, it's not just good tactically, but it's good strategically as well. Because, I mean, if I'm able to play fe6, like, whichever way he takes back, he's going to have some weak pawn. In fact, knight f7 looks like just winning material, right? So that looks like a good continuation. You know, it's removing the base of the pawn chain so that the underbelly, you know, well, remove the underbelly so that the rest falls apart, as it were. You know, queen f7, fe6, and yeah, I've just got the forks here. And I mean, I could probably even play something like some creative genius move, but, you know, one thing I've learned is that you don't want to overcomplicate things too much. Like, just play simple chess and you'll do well. So he's going to go for queen a4 maybe, but I can always play bishop b5 and defend it, but I'm sort of thinking a move like even a5. But maybe I'm getting too creative here. I think I'm just going to play bishop e5 and just keep the pressure that way. You know, after rook f8, I can then consider what my next move is going to be. Maybe I should just play bishop c2 and be done with it. Just defend the pawn. I'm not sure what to do with bishop c6, but maybe then I go a5, ba5, and I want to go knight b3, but I'm a little nervous that knight e4 might give him some counterplay. But okay, it goes bishop a6 instead. I'll just play rook f3. It does feel like, you know, I do have an extra pawn and I do have control over the position. So it's a matter of kind of organizing the pieces in the right way. And it feels like g5 is well timed here because, well, now I can sort of just trade off a lot of pieces like takes on g7, take on f7, and I want to make these exchanges because now he's a lot weaker on the dark squares is one thing. But also another point, I can kind of just trade off his best attacking pieces and, you know, put the knight on the e5 outpost. Actually, this was a little bit careless by me because he has queen f4 and that does give him some counterplay, but I do think that with knight d7, knight f6, I am able to keep control. So it's quite fortunate that this sort of works out for me, that he's not quite able to get enough going here. You know, king h8 is probably what he should do because king f8 I've got knight h7. I mean, why not take it? It's a free pawn after all. Just move knight back and forth. I can take on d5. Do I want to take on d5? I mean, I don't see any particular argument against it, but bishop g6 maybe is even better. So let's do that. Just take that free pawn. I'm playing a little bit too slowly because I'm like spending some time to talk about the moves. But okay, it's still like, I'm still playing faster than him. And in blitz chess, that's enough. Yeah, let's play another game. I want to see what kind of gambits he's going to go for against me. But you can kind of see, yeah, like in the positions which are sort of more strategic in nature, you can see like if you're not getting some attack, if he's not getting some attack, he doesn't really know what else to do. So I'm just going to play like fe6, just play it like a French, where this queen doesn't really fit on the f3 square in this position. You know, d4 I might even just play knight f6 and just, you know, keep the tension, like let him play e5 and, you know, get this position where his queen, you know, much rather have the knight on f3 rather than the queen. Let's just go c5. If it takes, I'll go like knight c6 and just pressure that pawn on e5. I still have to be a little bit careful because maybe he's going to try some bishop g5 or some knight b5 tricks, but honestly, I don't really believe that it should work that well. Like, just queen b6, and I don't think that white is a really good way to cover d4 and b2. So, like, he's trying to sort of attack by force, but when you're playing these kind of solid close positions, you have to be a little bit more patient than this, I think, to get what you want. dc5 is a good move here, but I'm just going to take, and because if long castles, I do have the move bishop takes f2 to grab a pawn. And otherwise, even just like knight c6 and just hitting this pawn is kind of annoying. You know, if knight f3, I've got queen b2 to hit the knight and hit the rook. So it's just very hard for white to really sensibly develop his pieces. Maybe the best move is just to swallow your pride. Okay, played bishop to c1, just as I say that. But I think I can maybe even ignore the attack with knight c6 is what I'm thinking. Because queen g7 does give me bishop takes f2. And as long as I'm not falling for some sort of tactic, that probably is quite decent for me. I mean, I could also just play castles and just sacrifice the exchange. But that's probably... It's a very interesting idea actually to sack the exchange, but it feels completely unnecessary as well. So I'm just going to play like g6. Like I spent too much time talking about the position. But okay, after g6. Yeah, it is true my king side's a bit weakened, but I'm not really going to castle on this flank anyway. You know, I can probably just play like knight d4 after f4. And, you know, just attack this pawn. Actually, knight d4 would be kind of a bit silly because of bishop d3, but I do have knight b4 as a good alternative if I want to get the bishop pair that way. I mean, white's position doesn't really make sense to me, to be honest. I know often in these French structures, you can actually play moves like f6 and just get rid of the center that way. So maybe that's what I'll do in this particular position. You can see it because white spent this time moving the queen early and not really trying to develop all of his pieces in the most natural way. Well, the result is that now, like, he has a really hard time, like, getting his king castled, because after f4, he's not going to have, you know, castle short. And it's very hard to play, like, bishop d2 and long castles as well, because, you know, in that case, well, a bishop b2, I can just take on b2, for example, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I've got rook c1. Actually, it's not so simple, maybe. Yeah, it does work. Bishop d2, queen b2, rook b1, queen a3. I hallucinate that knight b5 with knight c7 was winning, but I've got like queen takes g3, so it's nothing. And I think I'm going to castle in this position, unless he has bishop g6. Yeah, bishop g6 could actually be a little bit annoying if I'm not careful. So maybe I want to try and do something about that here. Well, let's see. I mean, I could go knight h5 first, then bishop g6 doesn't really have that much bite to it. So that's what I'm going to do, play a little prophylactically here. He can still take, but I can put my king on d8 and on c7, and I think that my king is going to be pretty safe at that point, as far as I can tell. There is some sharp complication, like there's a lot going on at this point, but I think that, yeah, if he does take, queen takes, king d8, g4, I'm going to have like knight e7 to defend. So he's going queen h4, I guess he wants to go g4 next move, but it does feel like I should have something pretty decent here, like even bishop e7 is, I think, going to be quite healthy. I mean, I don't really lose anything by playing bishop e7. You know, queen f2, I can always play bishop c5 in the worst case. I mean, even the ending is also, I think, very healthy for black. I realized I probably could have played this a lot better. Like, I probably missed some lines where black's just getting some massive advantage directly. But, I mean, the ending is sort of healthy enough, and it will allow me to just sort of outplay him on technique, because we're already kind of established that his endgame's not particularly good as such. It's just basically a one-trick pony attacker. So bishop b3, I've got the move d4, and yeah, b4 is, I think, a quite significant strategic mistake, and even arguably a tactical mistake, because now, if he defends the knight with the bishop, I'm going to go knight takes f4 and win the pawn, and I believe I can even do that here if I want to, unless he has some knight g4 trick, but I don't really believe it. You know, I can just go like bishop d4 check in reply, and it's nothing for white. Yeah, you can sort of see like he's just missing a few of the tricks, and like making these weaknesses, and it's like a combination of like strategic errors, but with some tactical consequences in the end. So, yeah, he goes rook e1. I'm just going to take the bishop pair, because why not? Let's play rook f8, keep the bishop d4 check in reserve, so I can use it, like, right now. I mean, yeah, with the opposite colored bishops, like, I probably am going to take it, just because, yeah, I think that it keeps my position very safe, and, you know, when I'm up on time, I don't want to, you know, rock the boat too much. So just play this, and, you know, I can even go, like, d4, potentially, but I don't want to allow knight e4. So I'm going to go rook f2, like, that's why he shouldn't have played rook g1, because now my rook gets more active. And, yeah, the only thing is my bishop is kind of dumb on d7. I'd love to go e5, but he's always going to have this knight d5. But bishop e3 is a mistake, because now I just get this pawn, and, yeah, I'll trade the rooks, why not? And I've got d4, and I win the piece after that. Oh, actually, it's bishop h6, so not winning a piece, but it's still very, very good for me. You know, rook to f2, rook a2, and he doesn't really have enough on the dark squares to really perturb me here. He's going rook f1. He's actually doing a good job of trying to swindle, but I think that if I play like knight to a5, and let's go bishop c6, like rook f8 is not really doing all that much for him. I go, oh, he has knight c8. Oh, I'm an idiot. He had a forced draw here, but he didn't see it. Man, I was so lucky not to fall for that. So yeah, okay, like I made this very, very stupid mistake, but okay, like that's how I slip of concentration. But I guess he's up for one more game, and that's probably gonna be the last one I do for this video. So yeah. Do make sure to smash that like button as well if you're enjoying the video so far. So I'm going to use what I learned from my English opening video that I did a bit earlier. I can put up as a suggested one as well. Yeah, he's playing this bishop e7. Like, it looks like a very weird line at first glance, but the idea is that, you know, that he's going to try to, well, get this position where he gets the center and, you know, tries to make something happen. It's an interesting question why I want to put the knight. I think I'm going to put it on d2, actually, and just go after his pawn. And creatively speaking, I want to go like g4 and attack the pawn, but objectively it's probably not that great. So I'm just going to take and just nurse the bishop pair like b4, bishop e2, just sort of grab, you know, just grab some squares. And maybe it's a position I'm not sure if I necessarily want to castle early, actually. Because if I do, then yeah, maybe he can try to attack me somehow. Dude, he has got a good amount of space, but I think that with a4, bishop a3, b5, or even just bishop a3 and b5 directly, I do think that is going to give me some very good play in this position. You know, he does have these pawns on the light squares, along with a light squared bishop. And what that means is that basically he's very weak on this dark squared color complex. He doesn't really have a great antidote to this. And already b5 is threatening to win an exchange, so he plays rook d8. But, you know, I can even just play like castles and just kind of keep the tension in this sort of position. Actually, it's probably a bit careless. I probably should go b5 directly, because now bishop e6 might be a little bit annoying at some point. But I guess I can go b5, queen f7. I do still have a move like c5 potentially, but it's kind of, I'd rather kind of open the position rather than close it. So I think f3 and trying to hit back at the center is the way to go here, so that I can play like fe4 and open up this file for the rook. And yeah, knight a6 I think is a mistake here, because now b5 can come with tempo potentially. I didn't expect him to play d takes e4, but maybe it's not such a bad move actually. I'm going to go b5, because c takes, I want to go queen takes b5. And the idea is that basically now I have this very healthy pawn majority, like the pawn on d4 and e3 versus pawn on e4. You know, the pawn c4 also gives me ideas like pushing with d5 in the future, and just getting that a3 bishop even more aggressively placed. So I feel like even with me, it's sort of slightly messing this up, but it's still a very good position for white. I think I'm going to put my queen, I want to put on e5 at this point, because I mean, it's sort of hitting the knight, and, you know, rook e8, I've got queen g3, and I can start to, you know, make some good business happen on the king's side. I mean, I think I am just better on both flanks. Like, I've got the bishop pair. I've got a sort of more flexible structure. Maybe you should play a move like b6. I mean, he wants to go bishop a6 and try to attack the pawn, but the problem with doing that is that then you have 5 pawners on. I'm going to play rook b1 just to get a final piece developed, though I do have a feeling that bishop d6 and bishop b5 was probably objectively stronger. But rook b1, it's kind of a move that just makes it hard for him to develop. And yeah, now I'm just going to go bishop d6 and just bring my bishop into the attack with this clever little maneuver. So, yeah, knight e6, he's being very tricky, because rook f5 has got knight d4 at this moment, which is kind of annoying. So, I could play king h1 to prepare this, and that way then rook f5, knight d4, I'm going to have rook f6, queen f6, ed4, and I win 2 minor pieces for a rook. And yeah, now like, he doesn't have knight d4 anymore, because he doesn't have the bishop to discover the attack from c8. So now I think white's just completely winning. Like, it's not just the extra pawn, but I mean, I've got the bishop pair, I've got the space, and now he's going to have problems where later bishop f6 is going to open up his king here. I've got rook f1 also kind of back it up. So basically black is more or less just lost here. And we can see like there's sort of this shift, like that when you look at these players, like these club players, like it's not just that, you know, they make tactical mistakes. Like, yeah, that is part of it. Occasionally they blunder pieces and pawns in blitz chess, and, you know, they will sometimes they miss some tactical ideas for the opponent. But you also kind of see from this game, they also will make some strategic misjudgments. Like they will, for example, like break some certain principles, like putting the pawns on the, you know, the wrong card complex for the bishop, or just kind of weaken their player's position with some bad pawn moves. Or, you know, also there'll be some cases where, you know, they simply, you know, they just don't really have a clear plan of like how to get a good pawn break to pressure the positionist sort of thing. The reason I gave up my bishop pair is so that I can weaken his king and create a target on f6 to attack. So now I'm just going to play, actually I could play knight e4, but maybe knight d4 is not so clear. So I'm just going to go bishop g4 and put the bishop on f5, and that's going to allow me to hit that weakness on e4. I don't really have to worry about queen b4, because I've got knight to e4 in reply. So knight g7 is a decent attempt. I think I'm just going to go play bishop f5, just get the blockade, get rid of the knight, because his bishop is not really doing much on b7 when it's stuck behind this pawn. So he goes bishop c8 to try to improve it, but now the problem is he doesn't have the move f5, because I would then take his queen. Now I can simply take his pawn. I'll put the knight on g3 probably just to deal with any rook g8 counterplay, and well, I'm up a couple of pawns, and as long as I'm careful, it's going to be a win. You know, I just want to make sure like bishop b7, d5 has shut out that counterplay. Actually, rook g8 could even have gone queen takes f6, so I guess that is why he is playing f5. But I'm just going to play it safe. Like, he's not that much time on the clock, so I can afford to be a little bit careful here. And bishop b7 is going to go h3, just avoid any back rank mates. I can meet rook g8 with king h2, just keep everything well protected. Okay, I missed the move of, you know, I missed this move of knight takes f5 on the previous turn. But honestly, it doesn't really matter that much, because you're about to lose on time, and I'm just up quite a lot of pawns here. So, like, it's not obviously the best way to play from a purely objective standpoint. We can see that, you know, the queens are off, and he just doesn't have any real kind of counterplay here. I'm just going to put the knight on e3 to defend c4, and also attack this pawn. I can put the king on f3, play g4. Okay, now I'm going to just play g3 and just, yeah, take. And, yeah, he's got nothing here. And, yeah, this was quite an instructive game, like, showing that you're not just limited to beating club players, like, by finding tactics, but also you can just beat them on a strategic level. And actually, in some ways, I think that's maybe the more reliable way to beat these players, like, just to beat them on sort of technique and on this strategic understanding. Because, well, if you think about, like, if you're playing just on tactics, well, there is a chance you might outsmart yourself trying too hard to trick them tactically as such, or trying to force the position. But it's not just like just playing good healthy moves, just following the general principles, like get your pieces to better squares, attack their weaknesses, you know, don't kind of do anything kind of obviously sort of silly. Well, that's often enough to win again these games against club players in blitz chess. So that being said, yeah, do make sure to comment below with what you loved about this video. It really helped me a lot as well if you smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. With that being said, guys, I hope that you have got some good ideas now on how to beat these club players in your own games, that this is going to help you to boost that chess.com Elite Chess rating, or whatever your rating is, like, I'd say, over the board. Whatever your chess rating is, I think this video will just help you a lot in order to play better against these opponents. So good luck in your games, and I will see you in the next video.